Hey YouTube, it's Matt with Olympus Reptiles, and with me is...
Caleb.
With...
Curtis.
And... Caleb.
Olympus Reptiles.
There you go, alright. Told you guys we're going to work on that because you are going to see more of them, even though the whole me quitting was an April Fool's joke, which I thought went over really well. So, if you enjoy us, some of you who said, hey, I hate to see you go, and for those of you that said, thank God, we want to see more Caleb, we should make both of you happy. All you got to do is click the like and subscribe button, and you'll get to see more of him, and I'm not going anywhere, so there you go. Like, subscribe, check out the Patreon, do all of that kind of fun stuff. And as I told you, you will be seeing more of Caleb. This will be a very Caleb-centric video. There's a reason for that. We've got this cage here. This cage, I should tell you, was built by Brace Exotics. So shout out to Brace. They built some good stuff. It's designed for geckos, especially like crested geckos. We bought it as part of a US Ark charity auction. So we bought this to slide some money to US Ark, and we also donated a snake to that same US Ark charity auction. So you always hear us talk about our charity being Sunset Zoo. That's going to always remain, well, I shouldn't say always, but it remains true for now. That doesn't mean we don't throw a few bones to places like US Ark too when we get the opportunity. So we decided to fill this cage today because you came across a pretty good deal on a bunch of crested.
I did.
Right?
Yeah. So I bought 16 crested geckos.
That's a lot of cresties.
Most of them were not hatchlings. A friend of ours, when I managed a shop, used to supply a shop with babies. They are moving to Alabama to further their career. And in total, to be honest, they probably had about 50 to 60 adult crested geckos. And that is a lot to move across the country. So they decided to part with a good chunk of them. And they messaged me and asked if I knew anyone. And I said, yeah, I'll just buy them all. So I did. I brought them home. I sexed them. There was about 7 or 8 that I just couldn't sex. And I'll be honest, I just kind of parted with those.
Did you already part with all those? Mm-hmm. So you've already got that dwindled down to just what we're keeping. And yeah.
Yep. So I parted with I parted with 7. There's an 8th one that I'm keeping for a special person.
I'm going to share that here in a second. You go ahead.
So, of those 8, I picked the cream of the crop to hold back for that person. And then I came down to 8, and I was looking. There was 4 females, so I was like, you know what? I'll just keep all 8. And in total, there was actually, in the whole bunch, there was 7 adult males and then 4 females. And so I had my girlfriend come over, and she kind of helped me pick out which males didn't quite make the cut. So we came down to 4 males, 4 females. So we have 4 pairs. 4 pairs. Nice. And so we can produce some cresties.
So we're going to set one of them up in this.
Yes.
Now, before we do that, you mentioned a special person, so I do want to talk about that really quick. I know Caleb just mentioned his girlfriend, which, congratulations. It's good not to be single.
Yeah.
But this is actually his fiance that this is for. Don't book the wedding yet. It's going to be a long time. She is 3, but she has decided she's going to marry Caleb, and she has told us that. Yeah. That's it's actually one of my little great nieces.
Yeah.
It's for their whole family. It's the older great niece, I think, that was more interested in it. But the younger great niece has decided you're her future husband.
Apparently,
well,
I am hitched.
You were the third choice. First, you wanted to marry Dad, so we had to explain to her that's not how that works. So then she's like, maybe I should marry Uncle Matt, and I had to explain to her, no, baby girl, that's not how that works either. And she's like, well, I'll just marry Caleb. So congratulations, buddy.
Yeah.
Kurt, you were never selected. I don't know what to tell you. I can't help you on that one. So anyway, the reason I said it's going to be a very Caleb-centric video is because Caleb has way more experience with crested geckos than I do. So I'm going to shut up and let him set up this cage, and we're going to put a cresty in it.
And I'm actually going to contradict myself real quick because, and I've had this conversation with Matt. I posted on Facebook. It's a very strong opinion I've had for years and years and years that saying that this species is a good beginner. I hate that because I truly think if you do the research and put in the time and effort, nothing is impossible to keep as your first pet. With some caveats, don't go buy it. Don't say, oh, Caleb said nothing, so I'm going to go buy a king cobra or a black mamba. But I truly believe with enough research, because if you don't, if you are those people who are like, oh, well, that's not a good beginner, and then you tell someone to go get this first or this first until they get that, you're condemning an animal to someone who probably doesn't care that much about that animal. And 2, you might make them bored and then they leave the hobby. And we're here to grow the hobby, so help people out the best we can. With that being said, this is where I contradict myself. If you are to push a first pet lizard ever in a store or anything, crested geckos are about the best way to do it. Yep. They stay small. They don't need any special heating unless you live in the tundra. room temperature, even into the little bit low 80s is okay. You don't want to do that too long or too high in the low 80s. They don't eat crickets. I mean, you can feed them crickets and bugs. That's not a bad thing. But they also eat the powdered diet, which I have a bunch of. And so that helps with moms who want to get their kid a pet who doesn't want to deal with bugs or crickets, and that grosses them out. No special lighting is needed. It's nice to have that, though, just because if you don't have your diet balanced and they're lacking something, that light kind of just helps as a blanket Band-Aid fix. But not required. We're not going to use lighting.
Well, we are. Just like a day.
This one will get lighting. The other 7 won't.
Oh, well, this one's going to be the pretty one.
This one, yeah. So, it's not that difficult. Just decent humidity and
and
give them food.
I think a lot of times, you know what? We're going to do an entire video on beginner species. It'll be our next video, so I'm going to just not get into that.
All right,
we're going to
cool.
get into that
We're going to go ahead and get started.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get this thing started. So while he's getting that, oh no, if you're going to talk through it, if you can talk at work, I'll let you do it.
So we're going to use Reptile Prime as a bedding. No surprise there, that's what we use for just about everything here. And there are some things I don't like using Reptile Prime for, but this is actually one of them that I do like. This is not a species that's going to spend a lot of time. I'm going to actually turn this away real quick. A lot of time on the ground. They are semi-arboreal. So really, you just want a good base layer of something that's going to hold humidity well. Now this is I believe female I'm putting in here, so I want it a little bit deeper than I would for a male, just because, like I said, we are going to be breeding them. I actually weighed all the females, and I believe this is also one that I'm going to be starting to pair pretty soon. Actually might be a little bit too much. So I want it a little bit deeper in case she does decide to lay. I'll turn that around. And then it's going to expand some too. That's what Reptile Prime is best about, is it holds humidity and expands it, which is going to give a good base layer. I don't want it drenched, just a good little soaking. Mix that up a little bit. You can see that there's a lot of water, but it's pretty dry. So I'm even going to add some more in there. Again, this is something where even if you accidentally do put too much water in, this isn't a species that's going to be buried in it, laying in it, getting soggy skin and infections and fungus from it, because if they're on the ground 90% of the time, something's wrong about your cage. Either you do have a heat source up here that's too hot, or there's not enough climbing stuff in there for them to stay. And this bothers me when it gets really dirty on film, but not a lot I can do about it. So the next thing I'm going to do actually is, while Reptile Prime does hold humidity fairly well, this is a species that does require a good amount of humidity. So I'm going to add some moss. Just because, again, these guys come from a place where lots of humidity. And I actually brought a bucket so I can soak this moss. If I was planning ahead of time, I'd have done that before, but that's okay, because you get to see all the steps. Nothing's faked, nothing's at all. And this moss I've seen someone take this moss like this, soak it, and then put it in their garage, forget about it, and 2 years later open it up and it's still alive. So this is probably a good amount of moss. Also, it just adds some coloring to it. I like color. It makes things look real nice. I'm just gonna kind of sporadically place that in there. No real idea ahead of time. I like to just kind of go with the flow of things and kind of let it come to life on its own. Another really cool thing you can do with this stuff is if you have logs in there, which we might do later, or even off camera, is you can take this stuff with like fishing line, super glue, stuff like that, and glue it onto the walls or glue it onto sticks, logs, things like that, and it'll grow around it and on that log, and it will, again, kind of come to life and be its own thing. So that's enough moss. And then, just because I am a big fan of dinosaurs, we're going to add a little bit of a dinosaur thing. I started to super glue some moss on it already. Hopefully the moss kind of starts to overtake it. Looks real nice. I don't have any right now, but I'm going to put some isopods and some springtails in there, kind of make it a little bit of a bioactive, make things a little bit easier on us as far as maintenance. You can get those from most pet shops. You can get them online. I get mine from biodude.com. Not that we're sponsored, but it'd be pretty awesome if we were, because I use him quite a bit. But I like adding bark in there. It gives them a place to hide, climb. They eat on the bark. What your isopods and springtails will do, for those who don't know, are they're like little cleanup crews. They eat animal feces, plant matter, things that are breaking down, dying, mold, things that try and grow in there that you don't want. And they keep away bad bacteria, and it really helps with the gecko's health. And then climbing stuff. Now, I did have some other logs for this. Unfortunately, kind of like how I am with my food, I overfill my plate and my stomach is not that big. This cage is not as big as I remembered, and so I got some really big cages, and so there are some really big logs, and the other two aren't going to fit in there. So I will work on that later. So it will be a little bit sparse, because something that's very important with crested geckos is you want vertical space as well. They get a thing that's called like drop tail or something like that. It's not where they actually drop their tail, even though crested geckos can. It gets really, really loose, and then the muscles get weak because it's, letting too much vertical space, and then it just kind of flops over, and it's kind of bad for them. So we'll add some more vertical space once I cut down on the logs and get some more of that going. Now, these aren't like the biggest of sticks, so they probably aren't going to hold a whole lot. They're not really meant to. It's okay to have things in there that are just for looks. You want it to kind of look filling out, and then when we breed in there, it also acts as a natural barrier. Reptiles, contrary to popular belief, are not always the smartest animal. They do a thing when they're super stressed out where they close their eyes and it shuts off all stimuli to their brain. It helps them simmer down, relax a little bit, and reduces their stress levels. The physical barriers work too. It works a lot like a 2-year-old. If they can't see you, you are not there. You are physically gone in their mind. So that works as well in case you have a male and a female in here, and the female wants to kind of get away, or if they're starting to fight and the male gets in the little barrier where they can't see each other, it kind of resets their hormones on that. So sometimes overfilling is okay. You can always take things out as things go. And then I have a couple more things, and again, I probably am going to overfill this, but that's okay. Right now we're just having one in there, so it's better to overfill and start taking things out instead of underfilling. So I'm actually going to tuck this. Let's see, right there. That's what I want. Kind of pin this between the log and the wall. That's what I want. Like so. Again, add more greenery, something for them to climb on, hide in. And I have this little vine, which I don't know if it'll work real well, but if it can, that would be fantastic. I'm actually going to, and it's okay to pull things out, restart, change things around. I just kind of like things to naturally develop over time. Yeah, I'm going to think on this one a little bit. For right now, this is a pretty solid crested gecko cage. I really like how it's coming out. Yeah, if I were to do something different, and again, this will be kind of off camera. I'll have another log that's going a little more vertical, and I'll have another one of these kind of up in this top corner as well. But otherwise, the last step to do is add the gecko. So this is a 26 gram female. I like to breed about 40 to 45 grams. She's got a little ways to go, which is okay. And she still has her tail. So I'm really still wonky on, she's got a little bit of rub on her nose, which is okay. They'll come off in a couple sheds. But this is what they do. So she is for sure a Dalmatian. You can see the spots. I think this is probably technically just a Dal spot, which is the first version of Dalmatian. Anything less than 50 polka dots is a Dal spot. 50 to 100 is a Dalmatian. And then 100 plus, if I remember correctly, is a super Dalmatian. So this is probably a Dal or Dalmatian, full-on Dalmatian. It's also a pinstripe, which is what you get call the lines coming down here. This is a full pin, because even though it starts to break up down here, I'll probably call this one a full pinstripe. Some of them don't get that at all. And she has some really nice crest, and you can kind of see where they get the crested gecko name and the eyelash crested gecko name, because it looks like they have eyelashes. Oh. And then the other morph genetic we got going on here is this is probably going to be considered a Harley Quinn. So when you have two tones like that, a low expression is called a flame. A high expression to medium expression like what she is called a Harley Quinn. And And then there's a really, really high expression, which is just the super Harley Quinn. So the cool thing about crested gecko genetics is they are not like ball pythons. They're drastically different. There's very few that are incomplete dominant, codominant, recessive, all those things. Most of these are what we call polygenic, where there's multiple things at play. And most of this stuff at best is just what we would consider, we call them traits. And so you can take this and make babies that never look like her, or you could take a normal and you get something really crazy looking. You can't really, it's really just a good guess, but you want the best looking adults because those will pass on the best looking crested geckos. Now the Dalmatian is one, though, I do believe that is a dominant or incomplete dominant gene. So we're going to go ahead and put her in there. And then while she is settling in, have these for her. So I'm not going to fill one up. One is going to be her food dish. I actually like having their food dishes down below. Some people like having up top because, one, it makes them work. And two, I'm actually going to tuck this one back there for the food. And it makes them get up and down. Two, I can see it better. It makes it easier for animals to, like, if I see, like, because fruit flies are notorious for invading crested gecko cages. So I can see if there's something going on. I can take it out real quick and clean it. And it makes them work. They have to get up and down, works their body a little more. So she's going to go in there. I will say crested geckos, one of the really fun things about them is they look good as babies. But unlike ball pythons, they actually age better. So as they get older, they'll look much, much better. So as she gets bigger, she'll color up. And she's actually probably what they call fired down. So her colors are pretty dull compared to what she usually is. We actually kept this one, specifically this one, because when she is fully fired up, she's almost lavender and purplish color. She's really awesome. I'm really excited to add her. She probably won't be bred, though, for another 6 or so months. But other than that, the last thing I need to do is, because I am not one to really name pets. I do my dogs. I don't know why I don't my reptiles. But because I have 4 females, I need a way, especially when breeding, to label them. And so I need to just come up with a serial number that I just made up just now.
Put a CG on it or something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to think that's a ball python number when we put it in the computer.
24.
There you go.
Because I bought it in 2024. And this is the first female that I have documented. That's how I'm going to do it from now on. Or something like that. And it's just a number we came up with just to, so when I document them, and in case in the future if someone asks, well, who's the parents of this, I can go back and look. Because crested geckos don't lay one clutch like ball pythons do. They lay 7 to 9 in a year, and there's usually 2 eggs each. So you could look anywhere, you could have anywhere from 14 to 18 babies, and they're not all at once. They could be a week apart, they could be several weeks apart, they could be a couple months apart. And with 4 females, I probably won't breed all 4 at once, but if I did, that's 18, 40, 72 babies. If I don't have them labeled correctly, it'd be very easy to be like, oh, well, you come from this parent or this parent. And so a lot of people, when they sell their crested geckos, they'll attach pictures of the parents because, again, there's no dominant real gene at play. These are all just traits of what they could look like. So you attach the parents' pictures so you can see the quality. Any questions?
So yeah, one thing on these crested geckos, we don't talk about it much. You mentioned this one still has its tail.
Yeah.
There's a lot of adults that end up dropping their tail.
It's actually thought that there are more in the wild without tails than with tails.
So if somebody has a crested gecko, they take it home, and a month in, say it's springtime, we have a big thunderstorm come through, and they come in and that lizard's dropped its tail. Should they be overly concerned?
No. In fact, unfortunately, so when I got all 16 crested geckos, all of them had their tail. You even saw that. Saturday when I was sexing one of them, it dropped its tail. So I have, and they call it a frog butt, I have a frog butt crested gecko. It doesn't hurt them. The tail is really just used as like a prehensile kind of grabbing thing. And then it's a defense mechanism if they were to have a predator. It does not regrow like other geckos, but in captivity, they're not being hunted by anything, so they don't need it for that. It doesn't store fat, so they don't need that. It's really just a cosmetic at this point. And it doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't even hurt the value. Some people even like the ones more without tails. It's weird, but they do.
So and that's why. So if you get one, that you're not worried if that happens to you. You don't feel
Nope.
like you did something wrong. Obviously,
The only thing I would be careful of is if it's a female and she goes into laying eggs as she drops her tail. It's still raw. It looks like an open wound. It'll heal on its own. No need to go to a doctor. But if she spends a lot of time in the dirt digging because she's laying eggs,
infection.
you might want to clean that out when she's done, just to make sure there's no infection.
And if you go to a table and a breeder's selling crested geckos and they don't have a tail,
That's not a sign of a bad keeper.
not a sign of a bad keeper. Now, I probably wouldn't buy one or sell one that had a freshly dropped tail with an open wound.
No.
That would be something I would look at and be like, whoa, this is maybe I should
To
question.
put
what I'm
it in
doing.
perspective, when I worked at the zoo, we had some in a those extra tall skyscrapers. So it was like yay big. It was 36 by 24. The water dish was in the very bottom, which is probably where I got the keeping the dishes on the ground thing. I went to pick it up. There was a male in the top corner. We were probably a good 4 feet away from each other, and it still dropped its tail, just me picking up its water dish. Sometimes it just happens.
Yep. And so they're really easy to spook on that, but it's nothing to be worried about. That's about all I got on these guys, really, man.
Yeah, they're really awesome, though. Like, it's something I can kind of show you I have. This is what I use. I like the watermelon one, mostly because it smells good. It's just a... It's probably time for me to get a new bag pretty soon. But it's just a powder. And there's directions on how much to put. To be honest, I don't follow that. I put a little bit of powder in, I'll put a little bit of water, and then I mix it up. You want it a little bit thicker than, like, applesauce. It's kind of the... But I say that, you're going to have some geckos that want it, like, chunky, which is disgusting. And you want some that will not eat it unless it's really runny. Either way is fine. There's no real hard... As long as they are eating this, it doesn't matter what the liquid amount is. And you may see them eat this a lot, and if you run a watery base, they may not drink water a lot. That is totally fine. You may not see them drink water at all. Don't freak out. Now you don't have to feed this. Like I said, you can feed crickets. I typically do a mixture of both. I'll throw in a dozen crickets every 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe, but then I will do this 2 or 3 times a week.
There's also some mashed bugs in a can you
Yes.
can buy for these guys, right?
Yes, I've never actually tried that. I know people use it with great success. To me, it just seems like it probably smells gross, whereas this stuff
I agree.
smells amazing.
That would be.
And
way
it also
better.
doesn't taste bad. I'm going to be honest. I'm just going to, full disclosure, I have tried it.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste bad at all. It tastes like watermelon. It's just really, this stuff is literally just dried watermelon, wheat protein, rice bran. I mean, it's dried egg. It's things we eat just dried. Because that's what they eat in the wild. There's
So-
maybe some bugs in there. I don't know.
This is what the astronauts eat.
Essentially.
Freeze-dried watermelon powder.
Freeze-dried
If you go to space with Elon Musk, I hope you like this shit. So no, that's all I can think of. Current questions you got?
No.
It's your show, man. Wrap it up if you're ready.
Yeah, other than that, leave a question. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys have crested geckos, let me know what you guys have. I have a bunch of different Harlequins, Dalmatians, and Flames, and then mixtures of different variations of pins. Let me know what you guys have genetic-wise, too, because I'd like to look into this. This is something that I'm kind of exploring on my own. There's no general direction. We don't have crested geckos before here, so we don't, I just know what I know through the shop and what I've done before, and back then there wasn't Facebook groups and shenanigans, and so let me know what you have. It'd be really cool to see what you got, check things out, and if you have other comments and things, just let me know. Other than that, we're going to slide on over to Patreon and we'll talk about something.
Crested geckos.
Crested geckos.